Aloha.
Oh, wait,
Let's
stop.
play.
Ha! You thought I was simply gonna play footage from Hanafuda Hawaii Style's video in my video, didn't you? Hello everyone! This is my first Hanafuda video after the Hanafuda for Beginners series. So this time, I am going to launch a new series called Hanafuda Around the World, where I show you different Hanafuda games played outside Japan. Today, I will introduce you to a Hanafuda game that gained popularity in the islands of Hawaii. This is Hawaiian Hanafuda, also known as Sakura. The game actually originated from Japan, in the old Higo province, which is now Kumamoto Prefecture in the island of Kyushu. The game was brought to Hawaii sometime around the late 19th to early 20th century by Japanese immigrants, and there it was enjoyed by both immigrants and locals alike. The game also had some exposure around North America, but didn't become as popular as it was in Hawaii. The game was known by several names: Gaji, Higobana, and Kumamoto Bana, but its most popular name is Sakura. Well, first, where does the name Gaji come from? Well, Gaji refers to the wild card in the game. You know Hanafuda? Well, here it's called Gaji. And why is it called Sakura? We already know that one of the suits in Hanafuda is the cherry blossom suit, or Sakura in Japanese. But why exactly is the game named after the cherry blossoms? I don't know, cherry blossom is a popular Japanese flower, I guess. Anyway, since it became popular in Hawaii, it was also given the nickname of Hawaiian Hanafuda, or Hawaiian Koi Koi. Note that this game has absolutely nothing to do with Koi Koi. I already mentioned it in my video about Koi Koi. If anything, the game should be called Hawaiian Hana Awase. But I guess Koi Koi is much more popular than Hana Awase. However, as the world approaches the 21st century, modern forms of entertainment such as video games and trading card games started occupying the free time of the youth, and traditional card games such as Hanafuda were at the risk of being forgotten. Fast forward to the late 2000s when Helen Nakano, who was born in Honolulu, Hawaii of Issei Japanese parents, wrote a booklet on how to play Hanafuda as a gift to her granddaughter, who was 5 years old at the time. Not only did her granddaughter like it, but her friends also wanted copies of the booklet, after which she had an idea. She thought that Hanafuda could be a great tool in bridging the gap between generations and bringing families closer together. So in 2009, she founded Hanafuda Hawaii LLC, which would publish and sell a gift box containing a Hanafuda deck with original illustrations, as well as an instructional book on learning how to play the game of Sakura. This has since become out of print and was replaced with the extra-large version, which had cards similar to a poker-sized Western playing card deck instead of the small and thick Japanese-style cards. Nakano continues to promote and spread the joy of Hanafuda in Hawaii through various workshops to this day. So why am I going to show you the game? I mean, Hanafuda Hawaii Style already made a video about it, and it's a very good video to learn how to play the game. What can I possibly add to justify making a video about Sakura? Guys, we're looking at this game from the lens of someone who has already played the basic Hanafuda games in Japan. You know, Bakapana, Hanaawase, those things. This is gonna be interesting because a lot of details between those games and Sakura are different. So please stay with me as we try to relearn the cards in Hanafuda as they are used in the game Sakura. Thankfully, the month sequence is standard. But what's not standard are the points in each card, as well as the ranks. First off, the junk cards are worth 0 points. It's like in Bakapana, where there's an option to make the junks worth 0 points instead of 1 to make counting points faster. But in this game, it's always 0 points. Second, the ribbon cards rank higher than the animal cards. This means that ribbon cards are worth 10 points each, and animal cards are worth 5 points each, instead of the other way around. And third, the rank assignment of each card is slightly different. There are only 4 brights, with the Rain Man being demoted to being an animal card. Curiously, the colored junk of Polonia is considered as a ribbon, bringing up the number of ribbons to 11. These differences give me 2 questions. Was the game so old that it was made during the time when there were only 4 brights in Hanafuda? Did Hanafuda decks from the Higo province in the old days have a Polonia ribbon in it? Sadly, I cannot answer either question, and it's up to the Hanafuda researchers in Japan to find out. So anyway, this is the standard card points table, and this is the Sakura card points table. You may screenshot this and print it as a cheat sheet. You will definitely need it. Alternatively, you can use the Hanafuda Hawaii Style deck. Each card in this deck has the card points already printed on it, so you don't have to memorize them. You may also use their other deck, called Hanafuda Hawaii, which features flora and fauna that are endemic to Hawaii. But just like character Hanafuda decks, you might find the illustrations a little bit confusing if you're used to the standard Hanafuda designs. But at least the card points are still printed on the cards. Also, since Hawaiians are more familiar with their own flora and fauna, you might find a lot of players in Hawaii who actually prefer playing with the Hanafuda Hawaii deck over the one with Japanese plants and flowers. Anyway, both decks have pretty illustrations, so hey, why not get both decks, right? Oh, and regarding card points being printed on the cards, this is not the first time a Hanafuda deck with card points for Sakura was made. In fact, during the 1960s, Nintendo, along with other Hanafuda makers in Japan, exported a special Hanafuda deck of the same size and material construction as a deck of bridge-size playing cards to Hawaii, where it was sold by a company called Paradise Factors. It seems that it was only sold in Hawaii, which makes the deck very rare. Also, the names of the suits are clearly indicated on the cards, as well as the months they represent. But what's most important are the card points, which are printed in the corners of the cards. On the other hand, Nintendo and the others also released a similar deck, which was intended for playing the typical Hanafuda games played in Japan, because it has the standard card points instead of the Sakura card points. It must have also been sold in Hawaii, or maybe even around the United States. Anyway, both decks are out of print, so you have a better luck getting the Hanafuda Hawaii Style deck. But I digress. Let's see what the game itself is all about. Unlike the Hanafuda games mentioned in my previous videos where there were only 2 or 3 players playing at the same time, Sakura seems to be designed to be played by 2 to 7 players all at once. The only modification needed will be to adjust the number of cards dealt in each player's hand and on the field, depending on the number of players. The objective of the game is the same as in Hana Awase, obtain more points than the other players. This is done by capturing as many high-ranking cards as possible, as well as forming Yaku. You may play as many rounds as you like. The game starts by deciding the seating position of the players, since the players' turns move counterclockwise starting with the dealer. This can be done by a roll of a die, or by the traditional card drawing method. Choose whichever method you want. Both methods are explained in my backup pana video. But basically, the player with the lowest number or earliest month becomes the dealer, and the second lowest or earliest sits on the dealer's right, and the third lowest sits on that player's right. and so on until the player with the highest number or latest month sits on the dealer's left. Next, the dealer takes all the cards and shuffles the deck. Depending on the number of players, the dealer then deals a number of cards to each player's hand and another number of cards on the field face up, and the rest of the cards are put face down on the table as the draw pile. Please refer to the table on the screen to know how many cards should be dealt to each hand and how many should be on the field. You may also write this down on your cheat sheet for your reference. Now, what happens if there are 4 cards of the same suit on the field? Is the deal considered void? Nope. The 4 cards go to the dealer's capture pile before the dealer even begins their turn. In this demonstration, I will be playing a 3-player game. As usual, I will be showing the cards in my hand for the purposes of this demonstration. The gameplay during your turn is the same as in Bakapana and Hanaawase. However, there is an additional rule. Typically in Hanafuda games, if there are 3 cards of the same suit on the field, they can be captured by the remaining 4th card all at once. This rule is also present in Sakura. However, there is also another rule called Hiki. In this rule, if in both your hand and on the field you can find all 4 cards of the same suit, then instead of playing 1 card from your hand as normal during your turn, you can put all those 4 matching cards into your capture pile. As you can see here, there are 2 cherry blossoms in my hand and 2 cherry blossoms on the field. So there are 4 of them. I can take all 4 of them into my capture pile. The only disadvantage is that you might end up running out of cards in hand before the other players do. In that case, during the turns where you have no cards in hand, step 1 is skip, and you go straight to drawing from the draw pile and playing that card. Similarly, if it's your turn and there are no cards in the draw pile, then step 2 is skip, meaning you only get to play the card in your hand during that turn. Also, the previously mentioned capturing 3 matching cards on the field with the remaining 4th card is also counted as a Hiki capture. But of course, you will not run out of cards in hand faster than your opponents if you do that. There's also another rule that is covered by the Hiki rule, which I will explain later. Also, since junk cards are worth no points, it is common practice in Hawaii to discard any captured junk cards into a common discard pile, but this is not required in the game. Now, as I mentioned before, Sakura uses a wild card called Gaji or Gajifuda. Just like in the game Mushi, the junk of Willow, also known as the lightning card, is used as the Gaji. Anyway, before I explain how to use the Gaji, I'll just point out that if the lightning card is on the field, then it is not considered as a Gaji and must be captured by a Willow card as normal. The lightning card is only considered as a Gaji if it was dealt in a player's hand, or if it was drawn from the draw pile. In that case, the Gaji can be used to capture any card on the field, even those of the Willow suit. There's an exception though, and this is where the next part of the Hiki rule comes in. If in both your hand and on the field, you have all 4 cards of the same suit, and one of your opponents tries to capture one of those cards using the Gaji, you must declare Hiki and immediately take all 4 cards into your capture pile. Hiki. This action does not affect what you can do during your next turn. So in other words, you cannot use the Gaji to capture a card that can be Hiki captured by your opponent. The game continues until all the cards in each player's hands have been played. And if you're playing with 3 or more players, the cards in the draw pile will have all been played as well. Depending on how the round was played, there may or may not be cards left on the field. If there is a card of the same suit as the card captured by the Gaji, then that card belongs to the player who used the Gaji. Any other remaining cards are considered dead cards and will not be taken by any player in the game. So now that the round has ended, let's count our scores. 2 times 20 equals 40, 2 times 10 equals 20, 5 times 5 equals 25, 40 plus 20 plus 25 equals 85. So my score is 85 points. For player 2, 1 times 20 equals 20, 4 times 10 equals 40, 3 times 5 equals 15, 20 plus 40 plus 15 equals 75. So player 2's score is 75 points. For player 3, 1 times 20 equals 20, 5 times 10 equals 50, 1 times 5 equals 5, 20 plus 50 plus 5 equals 75. So player 3's score is 75 points. So these are the card scores in this round. However, there are also Yaku in Sakura. There are 8 of them, and all of them are Deki Yaku. If you form one Yaku, then all other players must subtract 50 points from their score during the round. All of the Yaku stack. For example, if you form 2 Yaku, then all other players must subtract 100 points from their score. Anyway, let's look at the 8 Yaku. Here they are. They do not have any names. Hanafuda Hawaii Style addresses this by assigning each Yaku to a Japanese character from the first 8 syllables of the Iroha poem. Not only that, but they even put those characters on their cards as well, to guide players on which cards can form Yaku. To be honest, having Yaku without any names was such a pet peeve of mine that it prevented me from playing the game. However, now that I have read more obscure Hanafuda games and encountered more Yaku combinations, I got back to Sakura and I noticed a pattern. These cards are composed of 3 red ribbons with writing, but if you look at the suits in the Yaku, they are composed of the pine, the plum blossom, and the cherry blossom. And now look at this Yaku. It also has the pine, plum blossom, and cherry blossom suits. So it's the same Yaku as the 3 red ribbons with writing. But instead of being composed of ribbons, it's composed of animal and bright cards instead. I also noticed the same case with the other 2 ribbons Yaku. Same suits, but with animals instead of ribbons. In light of this, I decided that I am going to name these 8 Yaku. First, I'm going to subdivide them into 3 categories: the ribbons Yaku, the parallels Yaku, and the refreshments Yaku. The ribbons Yaku needs no introduction. 3 red ribbons with writing, 3 purple ribbons, and 3 plain red ribbons. Oh, and I forgot to mention, despite being a plain red ribbon, the ribbon of Willow cannot be used to form the 3 plain red ribbons Yaku, or any Yaku for that matter. If you're using a standard Japanese Hanafuda deck, you will notice that all ribbon cards have confetti around the ribbon, except the ribbon of Willow. That's your clue. Moving on. The parallels Yaku consists of Yaku of the same suits as the ribbons Yaku, but with brights and animals instead of ribbons. Parallel red writing is the same Yaku as Sugawara, which I have already explained in my Hana Awase video. It consists of the crane, the bush warbler, and the curtain. Parallel purple consists of the butterflies, the sake cup, and the deer. Parallel plain red consists of the cuckoo, the bridge, and the boar. And finally, the refreshments Yaku has nothing to do with the previous 6 Yaku, but that's okay. Both of these Yaku appear in several Hanafuda games around Japan. The drinking Yaku is the same as in Hana Awase. It consists of the sake cup, the full moon, and the curtain. There's a mnemonic for remembering this Yaku, which I have learned from Sola McLaughlin's video. Drinking sake under the full moon while smelling the flowers. The last Yaku in the list is the eating Yaku. And admittedly, I made that name up because, the other Yaku is called drinking. Anyway, it consists of the boar, the deer, and the geese. 3 animals whose meat you can eat. Yum yum. Sorry. If you're vegan, then let's just say that these 3 animals were known as farm pests, and they will eat your crops. Never mind. Anyway, in Japan, the Yaku was called Inoshikagan, which literally means boar, deer, geese. On the other hand, boar, deer, butterfly was called Inoshikacho, which literally means you know already. But back to Inoshikagan. Another name for this Yaku was Gambo. Okay, we already know Gan means geese, but what is a bow? But I'm getting off track here. So these are the 8 Yaku in Sakura. You may screenshot and use it as a cheat sheet as well. Hanafuda Hawaii Style created this diagram, which shows which ribbon Yaku corresponds to which parallel Yaku. Not only that, but you can easily see which cards can be used to form 2 Yaku. These cards are desirable in the game. The boar, the sake cup, and the deer are all animals worth 5 points. On the other hand, the Sakura curtain is a bright worth 20 points, making it the most powerful card in the game. Wait a minute. So is that why the game is called Sakura? Wow, I learned something new today! Anyway, Hanafuda beginners in Hawaii may also choose to play without checking for Yaku. I guess you could call it Hawaiian Bakapana if you like. Now that we know the Yaku in Sakura, let's check our captured cards to see if we formed anything. I got the parallel red writing Yaku. This means my opponents must deduct 50 points from their scores. However, they may also have Yakus, so let's check their capture pile. Player 2 doesn't seem to have any Yaku. Next, no Yaku either. So it seems that these are the final scores for this round. The player with the highest score during the round wins the round and becomes the dealer for the next round. Hooray me! If there is a tie, then the dealer, or the player closest to the dealer's right, wins the round. Now there are 2 ways to tally the scores in Sakura: the score cumulative method and the victories cumulative method. The zero-sum method is not used. In the score cumulative method, you simply record the scores of each player during each round, and the player with the highest total score wins the game. Alternatively, in the victories cumulative method, instead of recording the counted scores, the player with the highest score during the round earns 1 victory point, which is then recorded. The player with the most victories wins the game. If the victories cumulative method is used, there are some optional victory rules that can be used to spice the game up. Chew victory. If your score during the round is at least 50 points more than each of your opponents. Basa victory. If your score during the round is at least 100 points more than each of your opponents. Shirabasa victory is the same as a Basa victory, but you must not have formed any Yaku during that round. Usually when these victories are achieved, it is counted as either 2 or 3 victories. Feel free to use any of these rules and assign if they count as 1, 2, or 3 victories. For example, you may play such that a Basa victory counts as 2 victories and a Shirabasa victory counts as 3 victories. Or you may play such that a Chew victory counts as 2 victories and a Basa victory counts as 3 victories. And that was Sakura. But I'm not done yet. There are 2 more variations to this game. Team play Sakura. If there are 4 or 6 players, then the game can be played in teams of 2 players each. After the seating position has been decided, players on the opposite sides of the table belong to the same team. The game is played normally, however, the scoring is done a little bit different. Instead of each player scoring for themselves, the scores of each player in a team are combined together to form the score of the team. Also, the Yaku can be counted even if the cards appear in the capture piles of both teammates. You may also play such that all cards of a team go to a single capture pile. The team with the highest score during a round wins that round, and it is up to house rules to decide which member in that team deals the next round. And of course, the team with the highest total score in the game, whether it's counted as points or victories, wins the game. Oibana. Oibana literally means chasing flowers in Japanese. Before starting the game, you must prepare point counters, which can be ghost stones, poker chips, or even matchsticks. And these point counters must be divided among the players equally. It can be played by 3 to 6 players, and the game itself is exactly the same, except there is an elimination of players at the beginning of each round, so that only 2 players participate in the main game. This elimination process is done via an auction. Each player is dealt 8 cards in hand. Starting with the dealer counterclockwise, each player looks at the cards in their hand and they place a bid amount they want, depending on how good their hand is. And the 2 highest bidders get to participate in the main game for that round. All the other players return their hands back to the deck, and the deck is shuffled, and 8 cards are put on the field face up, and the remaining cards in the deck become the draw pile. The exact details of this bidding process is not detailed by the rule sheets that describe them, and it must probably be decided via house rules. The winner of the round is paid the amount bid by the opponent. As an option, Chu and Basa rules can also be applied here, and the payment of points by the opponent can be doubled or tripled. And that's all there is to this game. It's a great thing that the full rules for the game were preserved in Hawaii, especially with the efforts of people like Helen Nakano. It's very interesting to see how Hanafuda has traveled to many different places. It traveled around Japan, where each region has their own rules for playing Hanafuda, but it's more amazing how it even traveled outside of Japan and through the Pacific, and reached the Hawaiian Islands by the original Japanese immigrants there. For the next video in our Hanafuda Around the World series, we will show you a Hanafuda game that was brought by Japanese settlers to the island of Palau. Thank you guys, and I will see you next time!